welcome to today's episode of the P.E.A.R podcast, where our goal is to share the stories of women who have pivoted, explored opportunities, adapted to circumstances, and repositioned themselves for success, no matter what life or business has put in their path. And today, our guest is Ashley Burnett with Ashley Burnett Co. And I'd like to welcome you.
Thank you, Jillian. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yes, Ashley and I have met quite a few years ago and kind of been connected through different things. So it's actually exciting to have her back in my area again. So I'm excited to connect with you and share your story.
Yeah.
So, to start today, I'd like to kind of go back a little bit and how you got started in what we would call a career. What was your first kind of toe in this pond?
In the entrepreneurial pond.
Well, whichever pond you want, because I know, like me and many other women, you've had your opportunity to be in lots of different areas.
Yeah. Well, when I was I graduated as a dance major from the University of Illinois, moved to Chicago, danced professionally, and of course, waited tables to kind of fill that in. When I was 25 years old, and yes, we are from the same hometown, Quincy, Illinois. So that's how I met Jillian many years ago now. But yeah, when I was 25, I just had this moment. I was actually at the time considering going back to get my master's in dance. And I was sitting down for, informational interviews with a lot of my dance mentors, elders, asking them their thoughts about it. And almost every one of them were like, don't do it right now. I was like 23, 24, and each of them were basically saying, go out, explore, dance professionally, see the world, perform, then you can decide if you want to go back and get your master's. So it was really interesting because everyone was kind of deterring me away from that path, which I ultimately, by the third or fourth or fifth person, I was kind of like, okay, I'm getting the sign. And so at that time, I'd lived in Illinois, for 25 years and just had this like clear direction. It's time to go to San Francisco. So I headed out there, and the second day I got there, I enrolled and started massage therapy school, which had always had a love of, an interest in, and that set me on the path, really kind of set me on the entrepreneurial path. I did work in a spa for a couple of years, but then kind of got this opportunity to start my own practice in a new Pilates studio. 3 women in that at that spa were gonna go off, myself included, to start our own practices out of this Pilates studio. Well, the spa owner of this space realized she felt threatened by it. So she gave us ultimatums, and both of them stayed, and I took the leap to go start my own practice, which was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. It was a huge leap for me. But I had produced dance shows. I'd received grants to, produce dance works and things like that. But really, that was like the first moment that I really leapt into entrepreneurship, and doubled my income at that point because I was getting meager money over at the spa, but then I was able to charge for myself, built my practice very quickly, and that was really cool. So it was kind of like one of the big leaps for myself. But then a few years into that, I started to get this clear message: there's something more for you, there's something more for you. And I would be massaging these people and just being like, oh my gosh, I feel like, and I was super passionate about health and wellness and still am to this day, and ended up enrolling into a health coaching career, which put me onto the coaching path. And very quickly after, and this was in 2011, and very quickly after, people just started coming to me. Can you help me build my business? How did you do this? How did you launch this situation? Can you help me build my confidence and my leadership around this? And so within about a year, it started to shift into business and leadership coaching. And that's really how I've gotten onto this path, which I've been on for the last, 13, 14 years now. And we can go into further detail, but that's kind of how
Yeah.
I got launched onto the.
Yeah. And I think that entrepreneurship's not really new in your family because your mom and your grandma have both been professional
And
women.
my
So you
aunt.
want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my grandmother was one of the first optometrists in the Chicagoland area. Her husband died 2 days before her first child was born, set her into labor. There she was, a single mother in the 40s, going, what am I going to do? And she had a lot of grit and tenacity, and she went ahead and put herself through optometry school, had her sister watch her kiddo. She would take the train from Joliet into Chicago in a totally male dominated field, got her degree, and then reopened her late husband's practice and was one of the first females to fit for contact lenses in the US. And then my mother became an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur like me. Ran a dance studio, also did, she has an art business, and ran like a brick and mortar kind of showing you how to paint furniture store for a very long time as well. And then her sister was a textile artist and a really, really skilled like loom artist and all of that kind of stuff. So I've just been kind of initiated into that path, and I never put the pieces together of that matrilineal lineage of entrepreneurship until way later. But now I see, wow, that was really the lens of the world that I saw, and I really didn't see any other way than to do it my way. Like do it this way. So, and it's really, I look at how, my mom did it, where she was really burning the candle at both ends and busting her buns and really working hard to the point of, kind of burnout. And I just got to that point pretty early on where I started to reach those edges and go, that's not going to work for me. Like, this is not going to be sustainable. So it's been pushing 10 years now since I've been trained into ritual and ceremonial work and earth-based work where, we're working with the seasons, we're working with the cycles and rhythms of the natural world, but also with our own bodies as women in the business model. And that has shifted everything for me. And it feels like something that can be more sustainable, especially I think for women entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and I think that sustainability is a big piece because you can, they talk about, do what you love and everything else will follow. Well, that's kind of all well and true, but if it's not a sustainable business model, then it's very hard to succeed as whether it's an entrepreneur or a growing business, it has to have that. So, yeah. So when you got started in kind of the Ashley Burnett and Co. It really started off with just you. And then over the years, you have kind of changed that business model now to where you've got a team around you. Can you explain a little bit how that came about?
Yeah, I mean, as a massage therapist, I did DIY'd everything. I booked all my clients. Any kind of, it was really pretty like grassroots style marketing, word of mouth, all of that kind of stuff. Yelp was my friend at that time. But then as I became a coach, I was trying to do it that way and started to do the same stuff I was doing before. And I realized quickly, like, oh gosh, this is like the world of online marketing in the earlier, not the newest, but kind of mid-range stage, still fairly new in terms of coaching. It certainly hadn't gotten into this like big internet boom at that point. And I just realized there were so many tech pieces that I didn't understand, that I couldn't manage, and I wasn't going to like exceed or excel if I were trying to do all those pieces myself. So pretty soon into the coaching process, probably about a year in, I hired an assistant. Didn't have any money to really do that at the time, but I just got scrappy, worked out a trade to do massage with this admin person. Then it was a partial trade. Then it was full pay. Then it was, kind of working with her for a time. And then probably around 2017, about 5 years in, that's when I started to, right around the time I was meeting you, I think. That's the time when I realized I don't really want to do this totally alone, And while, yes, this is still my company, I'm still the, CEO of the company, I want other team members to come in and be a part of this. And that's kind of where Ashley Burnett Co was born. And so that's when we started hiring COO. That's when we started hiring coaches and strategists and people to kind of come in and to have this be a more collaborative kind of situation. So, and I think I love that. Yeah.
Right. And I think too that having that time that you had though in the beginning, it gave you the purpose and I think the structure for where you wanted to go rather than just starting in with a team right away. You got time to kind of feel out the direction and where you wanted to go. So
it helps you also understand what you are good at and what you're not good at, right? Yeah. And then start to see, we work with our clients to help them clarify, what's in your zone of genius and what's not, where should you, be delegating out, but you can't really understand what those things are until you start getting in there and doing. I always say hire someone soon, like at least just an admin to get some of these pieces off your plate that like are just absolutely not in your zone of genius.
Absolutely.
But once it starts to become like a bigger team, take your time with that,
And I think the other thing that, you mentioned doing trade work, but you don't have to hire somebody full time right off the bat. You've got to just work with what fits, right. And how it fits within your particular business. So in doing that, in the growing over the last, 5-7 years, what's been your biggest challenge that you faced?
Well, we thought COVID was going to be the big challenge, but to be honest, for our business model, it actually worked really well because we were already positioned. We were already on Zoom. We had already been on Zoom for years before that. We were already slated to create one of our 4-day retreats and convert that into an online training course to help other women learn how to lead retreats and group programming. So that was already like scheduled, and then COVID hit. And so we were well positioned at that point. And the other thing was I was living on land out in Petaluma, California at that time, which you've come to, I know.
Beautiful. Yes.
And the structures of that land, being able to have that outdoor land and that space to distance and still come together was like super powerful. So COVID was actually not the challenge. What was challenging was because, and you know this about me, Jillian, like client retainment is not an issue. People work with me for years and years and years. It was more about getting in front of new people at that time because we were so insular that, a lot of the ways that I meet people, sure, online, doing podcasts, things like that, but also in person at a coffee shop or restaurant. And like, we weren't doing those kind of things. And so what had happened was the community had retained, but we weren't bringing in new people at that time. And then I also made the decision to move cross country back to my hometown of Quincy, Illinois, after almost 20 years in the San Francisco Bay Area, and making that transition. And that was really hard. That was a hard moment because the business dipped at that point, and I was going through my own, period of grief from moving from California back to my hometown and kind of understand, which I did, primarily because my dad has Parkinson's, want to be closer to family and that sort of thing. And so just putting the pieces together and kind of re-identifying like, who am I now that I've moved back to my roots, and what does the business want to look like at this point? So it was about a year ago, and some change depending on when this podcast is released, but where I went into the quote unquote cave, and I had moved a year prior, gone through a pretty big grief process, and it kind of got to this point where I was like, I have to go dark for a minute. And I just went into kind of a quote, like a meditative cave for about 3 weeks, and scrapped this retreat I was going to do, and I told my team, I'm like, I'm not going to be available. I need to go be in my own space and get clarity. And during that time, it was amazing. It was like download after download after download just came right in and paved the path of like the path that we're on now with moving forward towards the Legacy Council. And we just wrapped our first round of that, and really excited for our 2026 round. And so I think the reason I say that is just because a lot of times our biggest challenges and the things that we come up against that feel so hard in the moment, often if we give ourselves the space to actually drop into that grief, or like to go dark and to clear out time to process that, that's when the biggest clarity comes through. And the biggest,
And I think that, mentioning that the move like that is a thing that does connect to grief, because a lot of times the word grief just gets connected to, loss of a family member or friend, but losing a job, moving from somewhere, even though you're from here has changed since you lived here before. And the people that were here or the things that you connected to maybe either aren't here anymore or have changed.
Right.
And so connecting in and giving yourself the time to do that is extremely important. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think people need to realize that you need to take time for yourself to realize, number one, where you are right now
Yeah.
and where do you want to go.
Well, and that's part of why, for me doing the earth-based ritual work, which is just more about creating more meaning and, creating potentially rite of passage rituals for big events that happen, such as a move, a divorce, going through menopause, having a baby, losing a loved one, shifting jobs. All of those things are big transitional moments in one's life, right? And so to create some sort of anchoring ritual or rite of passage experience to kind of commemorate that can help to pave the path, but also then to give yourself that space to process it. And we can't, it's like we have to go through these stages of grief. But I'll tell you, just as if you're losing, I mean, all the types of grief are different, but that move for me was I was going through all the stages of grief that they talk about when you lose a loved one too.
Yep.
And so, I don't want to underestimate that in terms of like, for people just to understand even a loss of a job or going through a divorce or something like that. Those are these big moments where we've got to like honor what it is that we're actually going through right now. And then,
and I think being authentic with yourself on your emotions, because I come from a very British background where, we don't talk about feelings and emotions, but, at least being able to be honest with yourself, and hopefully, have a good tribe around you. Who are your people that you rely on? To be able to help you through those. So have you found any particular systems or tools? I know you do earth-based rituals and things like that support your decision making and all of the things that you do, but do you have anything specifically that has been super beneficial for you?
so in terms of making decisions, a big
Well, I
decision.
think both personally and in your business, because sometimes you'll do something and it works for you personally, but it doesn't necessarily transition into a business decision-making process.
Yeah. Um, I am not the best decision maker, but I really, for me, it's more about intuition and intuitive decision making. So, and a lot of times, if I'm not working with that intuitive piece, I'll make decisions out of kind of rash decisions that then don't point me in the right direction, right? And so I think for me, I love, if I'm looking to make a decision, really working with writing things down, kind of writing out the future self, future version of myself. If I make this decision, where that might lead me, and then kind of assessing from there. And or I mean, honestly, most of my biggest decisions have ever been made doing some sort of, I get quote unquote a download or a hit of inspiration, like of from something bigger than me, and that typically happens. I get those messages when I am in nature, when I am doing something embodied in my body, like receiving a massage. I've gotten them a lot. Taking a hike, dancing, which, is a huge part of my background. So it's oftentimes in those and or meditating, like just going silent and giving myself that space to be able to make the clear decisions. Because I think what muddles our decision-making process is technology, having too many things on our plate, too many things on our to-do list, all of that kind of stuff.
A lot of noise, background noise that
All the
interferes
noise,
with it.
all
Yeah.
the interference, right? So
Yeah.
that we can't hear clearly
Yeah.
when we are in that state, and it's really hard to make decisions from that state. So even as we're making decisions, like I'm about to, we're recording this in December. I'm about to go dark for like a month and go on sabbatical in my business, which I built into my model so that I can have a little bit more spaciousness to give once we hit the new year. But even if I'm in like a really busy period of my business, like fall, spring, or really busy periods, I build in those breaks. I build in rest. I build in time to meditate and to just get off of technology so that I can still hear clearly. And then I still struggle making decisions.
Well, and I think too, a lot of times we talk about time management, but very few people talk about energy management and
Mhm.
the importance of, you can't serve somebody else when your cup is empty.
Right.
And so the importance, especially as a business owner, of making sure that you are taking care of yourself. And that is not a selfish act.
Right.
That is probably one of the best ways to keep your business going.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
On a
you want
whole,
to tell me
could
a
go on
little
a
bit?
whole tangent on that one, but we won't today.
We could, yes, yeah. So you mentioned your legacy council. So do you want to tell me a little bit about how this came out and what this does?
Yeah, actually, I clarified that whole program when it was a year ago when I went out to Petaluma and actually was at the beach and I've been leading long-term mastermind programs. Jillian, you've been a part of many of them for many years now. And so this was the 15th round of longer term, multifaceted coaching mastermind program for women entrepreneurs and leaders that I've led. But I knew that I wanted something new and fresh and different when I started this council. And so I got the concepts, the name, all of that at the beach that one day. Again, I'm in nature and just kind of being open to what wants to come through here. And this round just ended, was an incredible program, and we already have 9 women pre-enrolled into the council that's starting in March. And it's really for women, change-making women who are here to kind of steward a big mission or business, that are really ready to expand their income and impact and their wisdom, and really, move forward in their lives from a place of radical authenticity and bringing the whole woman into consideration when they are moving forward with their vision. And so, a lot of what women get from this experience is boosted confidence, moving through old mindset patterns that are holding them back and rewiring those, and then bringing it into the body where they feel a deeper sense of embodied feminine leadership, where they can, set stronger boundaries, communicate more clearly, really like carry themselves, hold themselves with more confidence, and sustainability, because they're prioritizing self-care in a really powerful way, speaking their truth in a way that, they can fully stand behind their mission. And then that, like as an example, someone just went viral this year because they were on social media, because they were just speaking their truth, but because they got that clarity through the programming, right? And so, and then you see these women's businesses expand and their leadership expanding, and it's just really, really cool. So it's this is going to be a year-long experience. It starts on the spring equinox around March 20th. And we do have some, free or low-cost events that will be virtual retreats and things like that will kind of lead up to that, for you to get an experience of what it might be like to be a part of that community at a lower cost. And then if it feels in alignment, we'll welcome some.
Yeah, and we can have links to both your website and to any of these pieces that you have in our show notes, that our listeners can come back to and take a look at. So we've covered kind of a lot of where you've been and where you've gone. Do you feel like there's anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share?
I think I just keep coming back to the power of community. For me, why I do what I do, and what I hear from the women coming into these councils, is just how much the community mirrors back to them the truth of who they are. And because these women are reflecting back their kind of highest self of what they see this woman in front of them blossoming and blooming into, and also giving them that encouragement to, like, yes, you can do it. This is an incredible idea that you have. Put yourself out there. Then they go and they actually do it. They're held accountable. They're stretched out of their comfort zone. But they're doing it in a way where they feel super held and supported and guided along that path. And I think that is and I think the entrepreneurial path can feel super isolating.
Yeah.
And so being in a community of women who can inspire you, I can't tell you the amount of times when these people's ideas, like these ideas come in that just absolutely wouldn't have happened if they hadn't come to that retreat.
Yeah.
And the whole trajectory of their life changes. Someone's living in France now, and owns a house in France and in Petaluma because she, got this idea at one of the retreats, right? And so there's just really cool things that happen when you're in a community like that can just support you. So for me, it's really about the power of community, and
no, I agree.
Self to be held and guided and supported instead of you always leading, always holding, and not being on the other side of that, So
Having that supportive community, I think, is important no matter where you are. And I know we talk a lot about, entrepreneurs, but I think sometimes women who are in the C-suite feel the exact same way because they feel isolated and they don't have that community around. So it really doesn't matter where you are in your career path, just to make sure that you are able to pull together some form of community that supports. I think not only you as an individual, but where you are in your career. But it's also good just to be able to have, some friends to be able to go out and do a few fun things with. Because I know that's something that I kind of picked up on, that I get to be very focused on work. And the fun doesn't always jump out and go, hey, I need to have fun today. But that's something that we need to intertwine in our life.
More joy, more joy, more joy.
More
Yes.
joy, yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here. And so we will, like I said, we'll have information about how to contact Ashley in the show notes. And if you're interested in connecting in with her or any of the work that she does, please check there for that. And appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Jillian, and thanks for everyone tuning in. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a beautiful day.
All right. Thank you so much.